To be chipped or not to be? That is the question. Workers in Wisconsin are the first in the United States to be implanted with microchips. They're opening doors electronically, remotely logging into computers, even buying lunch without moving a muscle. But what about potential risks to health and security? And are we forgetting privacy? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Hazem Sika. Welcome to the program. A technology company in the United States is getting under the skin of its employees, literally. It started implanting microchips into the hands of dozens of workers in Wisconsin. And with the swipe of their hand, they can now bypass things like badge checks in the office. But the skin tech has its critics. Some see another example of Big Brother watching your every move. Our reporter Diane Estabrook explains.
That's not even pretty.
Microchips, similar to the ones implanted in family pets, are now being embedded under the skin of the employees at a company in River Falls, Wisconsin.
In a lot of ways, it was easier than a shot. I mean, everybody's gotten a shot at a doctor. I almost didn't even feel it.
At what was described as a chipping party, a professional piercer implanted the radio frequency identification chips into the hands of employees. They're about the size of a grain of rice and will let employees access offices, sign onto computers, and buy snacks from a vending machine, all with the swipe of a hand. More than 50 of the firm's 85 employees were chipped, including Sam Bankston.
Well, I knew that there wasn't any weird science or anything strange going on with it, so I had no problem sticking it in my hand.
The company, 3 Square Market, partnered with a Swedish-based firm, BioHax International, to install the technology. President and CEO Todd Westby said the human chips aren't GPS-enabled and are secure.
We've got 256-bit encryption, and because it is a closed application, we basically have the keys to the kingdom for anything that gets published on this.
Experts say the chips might actually be more advantageous than key codes or access cards like the one I have, because this could be stolen. And in fact, 3 Square Market says it's already had inquiries from embassies, hospitals, and banks. Still, employee rights attorney Sean Wanta says the chips raise questions with him. He thinks workers could be sacrificing some privacy for convenience.
This card will be linked to vending machines, so the employer can see what you're eating, when you're eating it. They might be able to see when you use the restroom. And piecing that information together, an employer can get a pretty good idea of what an employee's workday looks like.
The chips can be removed if an employee leaves the firm. The company says it's like having a splinter removed. And while the chips are approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, employee Katie Langer is taking a pass for now.
So my concern just is with the health effect. What's going to happen to my body when I'm putting this foreign object into my hand and down the road.
3 Square Market says it's investigating other applications for the chips and thinks one day their usage could become as common as smartphones. Diane Estabrook, Al Jazeera, River Falls, Wisconsin.
All right, let's bring in our guest now to talk more about this. Joining us from Stockholm is Ben Libberton with the Swedish Medical Nanoscience Center and a critic of this microchip process. Jowan Osterlund is the founder of BioHax International. He joins us from Helsingborg in Sweden. And finally, Clara Grelsson, who's been implanted with a microchip. She joins us also from Stockholm. Good to have you all with us. So, Jowan Osterlund, if I could start with you, just explain to us, first of all, how this chip works and how it benefits people.
Well, to start, it benefits, well, among others, it gives you easier access and faster access, a smoother actions with your digital surroundings.
And what inspired you to come up with this?
Well, I guess it's been a childhood dream since I saw Johnny Mnemonic, really. Just being digital and being able to speak to machines makes life easier, I guess. And not to mention just that there's so many things.
How long did the whole process take from when you, I suppose, first came up with the idea to when you were first able to put it into action in some form?
Well, we made some research into how it would work under the skin. So you got the saline in the skin, you got blood, which is alkaline, which also traps some of the EM going into the NFC circuit. But as soon as we got it working, we understood that this could pave the way for a whole new field of technology. I mean, mixing my work with my interests just created this new discipline of body upgrades.
Clara Grelsson, as someone who has been implanted with this chip yourself, tell us about the experience that you've had with it.
Well, as Jowan says, it makes my day easier. So what I use it most for is to get into our office building and also access our floor, which was, it took me a lot more time to have, find the card and swipe it and put my code in. So now I'm just kind of like just holding my hand in front of the machine, and then the door opens. And so it saves a lot of time during the day. I am also using it for my gym chain, so the Swedish gym chain SATS. There I can just use it to enter the gym, basically. So I don't have to bring anything but my shoes and my bottle, so I can just enter. So I think that's what I use it the most for, but I'm also looking forward to when the Swedish Railway are starting to use it as basically the digital ticket. So yeah. And
what's been the reaction that you've got on this from people that you've spoken to? Do they envy you for having this, or do they think it's a little strange, or what are they saying?
I think that most people think it's a bit strange. People that work within the media industry, of course, they are a bit more familiar with the whole idea. But it's far from everyone that has it. My friends that don't work within this business, they think it's very strange, but they also know that pets have had this kind of like under the skin for many years. So if they think about it that way, then it's nothing strange. But usually when they touch my hand and when they feel the chip, which is a bit more like a rice grain, then they think it's a bit weird that it's something under my skin.
Ben Libberton, what are some of the concerns that you have about this technology?
As it stands now and the uses that have been described, it's very innovative, very inventive, and I don't think that there is much danger associated or much risk associated with how it's being used right now. My problem is that as it stands now, there's a brand new way of data being transferred and quite intimately, invasively integrated into the human body. And the question is, where does this go in the future? Now, it could all be maintained and very safe and encrypted, but I think that has to be addressed very carefully, because there is a risk that as more integrations come into this kind of chip, as more data is being transferred, then there's a risk that it could either fall into the wrong hands by being hacked, or people could give away their own personal data without realizing it by signing up to terms and conditions with companies that are providing services associated with the chip.
At the moment, though, Ben Libberton, this is a completely voluntary exercise. I mean, the report we played earlier about the company in Wisconsin that's doing this, no one was forced into do it. It's a completely a voluntary decision. So does that not address some of the concerns that you brought about privacy and so on, and this information being used in a way that people might not be comfortable with?
No, absolutely not. I think that's possibly even worse. I mean, when you think of the things that we do voluntarily, like giving information to Google and Facebook, I think that's where a lot of people give away data for free. And so there's two sides of looking at it. You can look at people stealing it and taking it from you, and I think voluntary and having a small user base, I think that's fine. But I think the problem is that people are very now accustomed to signing up for things, giving away data, giving away privacy. And I think if you do it voluntarily, I think you're kind of more likely to forsake things like this. And as I say, at the moment now it's okay, But what data is going to be transferred in the future? That's my concern.
All right, let's put some of that then back to Jowan. How do you address some of these privacy concerns about the breaches, the legal questions and so on, about how this information might be used and the precedent that it may set?
I mean, we're building an organ for standardization, and we encourage legislation, and especially, like Ben said here, we're using kind of low-level tech right now, but when integrations will be more and more sophisticated and advanced, the data migration and the data exchange should absolutely be both well encrypted and also well safeguarded. I mean, we've got the GDPR put in place May next year, which is a heavy-duty data protection act, which dictates how companies must protect their users' data, and if they don't comply and make a boo-boo, they're going to get a 20 million euro fine, or 4% of the net turnover globally. So, I mean, I definitely encourage integrity and privacy on this. And since we're at the first level of the development of this, we of course see to it that it will develop in the right direction.
Clara Grelsson, when you signed up for this program, did you have any concerns about how this might be used? The fact that there is this chip inside you and it can be monitored. The question perhaps of your movements in the employee workplace, that people, that they could be aware of where you go every time and how many times you go to get lunch and all the rest of it. Were any of those concerns weighing on your mind at all?
No, I don't think so, because when we talked about this chip, we just talked about that it was near field technology, basically, and that you need to have something very close to your hand to basically read from the chip. So, I mean, I don't see the difference between me just swiping my gym card, because I still have that history as well when I log into my app and see how many times I've trained during a week or so, and this is just replacing the card. But of course, if there are new chips that are read or can be read from a further distance, yes, then of course that would be something else. But as far as I've understood it, this is just near field technology, or communications.
Let me come back to you then, Ben Libberton. Are you concerned that this could be, this information, if it's used further, could be used for some sort of covert monitoring of any kind, that it may be misused in some way?
It could be misused. I'm not thinking necessarily of covert monitoring. I'm just thinking that all of your data could potentially be in one place. So, for example, if you have a lot of integrations in this chip and you go to the gym and then it's used at work and then you use it in lots of other places, and then in the future when there's new chips, new technology that can monitor things about your body, about your health, which would be amazing and would really help a lot of people's health, where does the data go and who has it and how is it being used? So the question is, as someone, if suddenly a chip detects something within my body that might be a marker for something, who has that information first? When do I get hold of it and how is the information used? Is it then sent to an insurance company? Is it sent to a doctor or something like that? These are the kind, I'm not thinking of someone kind of spying on someone and following them around. I'm thinking more about a wide-scale use of the data and how it would impact an individual user.
Jowan, Osterlund, let's put some of that back to you then. What are the safeguards that are in place at this point to prevent that sort of thing from happening, from other companies perhaps taking all of this information and using it?
Well, the difference wouldn't be much difference from today, but when it's that kind of personal and intimate data like biometric, a biometric stream, we would definitely need to, well, I can't go into too much detail on how the data would disperse and be protected, but that's definitely something that would be detached from your person. But you could choose whether you want a research facility to be able to take part of age, if you're in research. But then again, if someone else wants to take part of your data, they'd have to nicely knock on the door and ask for it, because you need to be the key or the vault door of sorts between corporate and your data. Because it's going to be a whole nother level of value in this data.
Clara Grelsson, I want to ask you about some of the differences that this particular chip has with others, like, for example, smartphones and so on. I mean, unlike the company swipe cards and smartphones and so on, these can generate the same data, but a person can't easily separate themselves from the chip. Is that something that concerns you at all?
No, actually not. Maybe it sounds a bit crazy, but no, I just thought that I wanted the chip because I think it's a part of the future, and someone needs to start to try it and test it. But it's not hard to just take it out from my hand, so it's just beneath the skin.
So there are options to reverse it for you if you ever chose to.
Yeah, I can just remove it. So I don't think that would be a problem if I would like to remove it. So, but yeah, of course. But the thing is, for me, it's good that I can't remove it, because then I can't just misplace it or forget it. So I don't get into the office. I always have it with me. So it's just one more thing that I don't need to think about right now.
So what are some of the ways then that you would like to see it done in other things, other aspects of everyday life? Where would you want to see it expanded?
Well, you can already find at least in Sweden today that you can open your normal doors to your houses. I don't have one of those yet, but a lot of places where we have locks, I would love to just be able to use it for that. And actually in the future, I think it could be good if the chip also could read like blood pressures and stuff like that. So how I'm actually feeling on the inside. I know that could be really far in the future, but I still think that would be amazing. And I use it for like tickets. I am also part of a really early try for the airline company SAS with their Eurobonus program. So there are more and more big companies also tagging along on this.
Ben Libberton, this chip, as I understand it, unlike your fingerprints or your face, can always be replaced or reconfigured at any time. Knowing that, does that address any of the concerns that you brought up before?
I think that's good. I think that's important. But one of my main concerns is that, as Jowan was saying, you have to give away your data. Someone has to come and knock on the door and say, can I have this? And I think there's quite a big precedent these days of that actually happening, and we do it because I don't think we're completely aware of the terms and conditions of many companies, what it is we're actually handing over. So my concern is that we're all walking around with the chips and we're happy that our blood pressure is being monitored and that, you know, we're receiving the benefits of not having to look for keys and we're being healthier because of it. But then the question is, if a company came to our door, knocked on the door and said, can I have your data, would we be equipped enough to be able to say no, or would we just say yes, like we do with services like Google and Facebook? Would we just give our data away? And I think that the proof is from what people are doing now is that we probably would, and I think that's dangerous.
Jowan, Osterlund, talk about some of the ways that you hope that this technology may be expanded into other walks of life.
I'd definitely like to see cutting corners on logistics and bureaucracy in matters of data migration from different municipalities or healthcare units or insurance, or being able to be your own data carrier and being your own safeguard of your data would allow for a faster bureaucratical handling. And I mean, besides that, of course, a high level of monitoring. So you teach your body how to speak to you rather than measure everything all the time: blood pressure, glucose, blood fat, respiration, EKG, ECG, and you know, having that detached from you as a person, crunching it in a supercomputer. You could have just no end to the benefits, really. I mean, the longevity of people would increase, optimization, logistics would decrease, pollution, getting on a bus 3 seconds faster for every person.
Clara Grelsson, what would you say if you came across people who are still very skeptical about this and have concerns about the idea of this chip inside them and kind of being able to monitor their everyday movements and all the rest of it? How would you convince them of giving it a try?
Well, I don't think that I should convince them, because it's up to everyone to just decide for themselves. But I can just tell them what I'm using it for and how it works for me, and then they just have to make up their own mind. I can understand if they're skeptical. People usually are in the beginning, and it could always happen something negative. But I am using it for stuff that makes my life easier, and I know that I can take it out from my hand, and that works good for me. I don't have any issues with it being in my hand, so I'd say that they just need to give it a go if they have the guts, because I mean it takes 1.5 seconds to put it in there, and the pain is over after that. So.
When you say it's made your life easier, does it? I mean, does it do things like get rid of red tape and make things quicker, as Jowan was talking about there?
Yeah, well, right now I'm not using it for that many things, but just, we spend a lot of our time at the office, and if you need to go just in and out a lot of the time, so then it's of course it makes it easier, because you don't have to have that normal card with you all the time, and so I think that's what I'm using it for mostly for. So, but I would love to have a lock to my bike. That would also be very good. I'm looking at that right now.
Ben Libberton, given some of the concerns that you raised about this earlier, what would you want to see done to deal with those concerns at the government level?
At the government level, I think legislation is very important. So I think that whenever there's a new integration or a new company coming along that wants to use the technology that's being developed in the chip and wants to integrate with it, I think the government should help to make sure that it's safe and act in the interest of the citizens and of the users of the chip to make sure that they are protected.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much, all three of you. Ben Libberton, Jowan Osterlund, and Clara Grelsson. Thanks very much for being on Inside Story. And thank you, too, for watching. Remember, you can see this program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, you can go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle there is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Hazem, Sika, and the whole team here, bye for now.